What up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at... Yeah, I don't like that. How do I start off? I know nothing. Today we're going to be talking about how to make a grass explosion like this inside of Houdini and Redshift. And it's way simpler than you think. Shout out to the guys at ManVsMachine. They came up with this, so now I'm just kind of like making my own layman view of it. And it looks pretty good, I think. So we're going to get started with that. Let's hop into Houdini. So the first thing that we're going to start off with is how do we make this asset? Let's go back and look at this. What do we need to make this? We need grass, we need an explosion, and then some materials and some lights, and then I'll come in after. But those are the two main things, and that's kind of it. It's very simple once we just break it down into those things. So let's hop straight into Houdini and let's get started. Sweet. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make the grass. So let's go ahead and hop in and grab a geonode. We're going to rename this grass. And we're going to go in and we're going to create a line. So we're going to drop that line in, and then we're going to go in and we're going to change the length to 0.1. And you're like, why 0.1? I don't know, because I did it earlier and that's what worked. Whatever. We're going to increase the points to 10, and then we're going to drop a transform node underneath it. Nothing you need to do here except for take this first rotation and we're going 90 degrees with it. We're going to add a bend node to this as well. We're going to put that in and we're going to change the bend to 120. So we're going to come down here to this capture length and we're going to decrease the capture length to about, I don't know, 0.2. That way we get some bend in our line. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to take that line and we're going to copy it a bunch of different times, and that's going to be the backbone of our grass. And then we're going to use a simulation and all sorts of stuff afterwards to make it look like grass after the fact. So now we got the grass, now we need the ball of grass. It's pretty simple. We're just going to go and we're going to make a sphere. We're going to go in and it's really big, which is fine. We're going to add some columns and some rows to it just to, like, you know, make it nice and smooth. And then we're going to go in and we're going to say VDB from polygons. What we want is we want to create a volume that we can scatter points to. So then we're going to go scatter from, if I could only type, scatter. Nope. It's a points from volume. Got it. There it is. Perfect. So now we've got points to be able to copy our lines to. So we're going to go down to, like, I don't know, whatever, 0.06. That'll give us enough to where we can figure it out. This is the one thing that you're going to go back and change once we get all the stuff in place, and then you're just going to like bump this up as much as you want to make it more dense, that kind of thing. You can add some jitter scale if you want to kind of like, you know, break it up or whatever. That way we don't have to do a randomized position. And now we're going to add all sorts of different attributes to these points. That way we'll have some randomization, we'll have some stuff to work with in our materials, all sorts of things later on. So we're going to add an attribute randomize, and instead of doing the color scale, we're going to go with the P scale. So drop it down, and I'm going to say the minimum value is going to be 0.3, and the maximum value is going to be 2. Again, why did I choose these numbers? Because I did it, and it worked well, but you can do whatever you want to with these numbers. It's up to you. Anyway, we're going to drop down another attribute randomize, and we're going to make this orientation. So it's going to randomize. Oh, orient. I am terrible. Okay, so we're going to come back to that. Put a pin in that because that's not actually working right now. And I thought it would right at first whenever I dropped it in for the first time, and it doesn't. But I'll show you the differences. And it's one simple adjustment that is so ridiculously simple, kind of overthink it. Anyways, so now we're going to add some color to it. Let's go attribute adjust color, if I can spell, which I still can't. I need to go to school for that. We're going to come down to adjustment values, and we're going to say random. So that's going to randomly give our points some color. There it is. I had the points thing selected, so just turn off display points and you can see the colors. Instead of it being all sorts of colors of the rainbow, I'm going to take this, I'm just going to delete these two right here, this yellow and this blue, and I'm going to add some, like, I don't know what I think that some grass would be, right? If we're looking at this asset, right, we want some variation because they're not all the same color. They're a little bit different, and that's kind of what makes it organic feeling. So let's do that. So now we've got all these points. Now we've got to copy this to this. So what do? We go copy to, oh my gosh. The microphone's in the way, so I blame that. We're going to copy to points, and we're going to drag these points into the target points to copy to, and then we're going to add this geometry to copy to, and then go inside, and now we should have all sorts of copies of our lines, of what our grass is. But you're like, well, that doesn't look good, and I know it doesn't look good, but just calm down, okay? Stop yelling at me. We're going to go back into our randomize attribute, and we're going to increase the dimensions to 4. It just works. Don't ask me questions. I think it's because it's like wanting to see it as a vector, or like it's some kind of something. Again, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just moving sliders around and it ends up working. We've got all of our copies, and now we need to make them look like grass. How are we going to do that? We're going to add a sweep node to it to the end, and that's going to do nothing. No cross-section geometry provided. Well, that's good, because all we have to go is to the surface shape, go down to ribbon, and boom. Perfect grass. No, we need to decrease this width by a lot. We're going to go, I don't know, maybe down to 0.3, 0.2. I'm not really sure. We're going to have to probably play with this a couple different times, but that's not going to do it either. How do we make this to where it looks like some blades of grass? Well, we're going to go down to scale, and we're going to click apply scale along curves. Now what we can do is we can drop a little point in the middle, grab these points on the end, bring them down, bring them down. You know, it looks a little bit like grass, like not a ton. They just kind of look perfect. And that's, I don't know, that's something. It's how we're going to get there. Now we've got them going, and we're going to add some depth to it. Even though they're very thin, they're not a sheet of paper thin, like 1 atom thin, which is what they are calculating as in the program. So let's add some body to it. We're going to drop an extrude node down. I think it's called poly extrude. Yeah. And then we're going to grab that in. We're going to grab that in, and we're going to go into it. And so let's add some distance to this. Oh my gosh. That's not what we want. It's way too much. We just want it to be a little bit. Basically, I just went in and I said 0.002. So that gave me like a little bit of this. That's honestly too much still. 0.0005. Yeah. We also want to click output back so that we get 2 sides. And it has some thickness. Now we've got our ball of grass. Now we've got our grass copied into our ball of grass, and we need to make them move. So we're going to go back. Before this sweep and poly extrude, we're going to click on this copy to points, and we're going to pipe this in to a Vellum solver. So first of all, I'm going to drop down a Vellum solver. And what that's doing is that's giving it cloth-like values, and we also have to give it some constraints. We're going in with some configure hair. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to change some settings here. Again, this was all based on what I figured out. The stretch was fine. The bend, however, was either too stiff, which if you press play right now, it would be too stiff. The best way to just go ahead and preview it, I found, is to just go ahead and put some pop wind in here, pipe it into some force, turn up the amplitude, go back to your Vellum solver, go to forces, undo the gravity, that way it doesn't fall down. And then we go in and we just watch this. That's not doing anything. Oh, because I didn't check the Vellum solver. Perfect, yep. So also pipe your constraints in. And so I'm going to press play, and it should, yep, there you go. Got some turbulence. So we're going to turn down our bend stiffness to 0.000 space. I don't know what the space is for. 0.1. Maybe it's just easier to see it that way. And then we're also going to bring it down to 0.5. Right now, we've got our grass moving really well. But what we saw in this asset thing, it starts off as a ball, or if you look at right there, it's like kind of ball-ish and then explodes from there. So how do we make that? How do we make it go into a ball? Well, I could do, you know, some like crazy vex coding or something like that. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to do it very fast and very simple. I'm going to go grab this sphere. Let's take all of this and push this over. I'm going to grab this sphere, and I'm going to drop a transform node down and pipe it into the Vellum collision geometry. Let's go back to 1, and let's just look at this guy. What we want to do is we want to set a keyframe at 24 frames right here, where the uniform scale is 0. So you can do that by doing Control or Option and then clicking the thing. I don't know. I'm using a Mac keyboard on a PC, and it's kind of confusing. So whatever the thing is for you, you do that. So we're making a keyframe there at 1. We're going back to the first frame, and we're going to increase the scale to like 2, and then put another keyframe. And what that's going to do is that's going to create a sphere that presses all of the stuff into basically the sphere that we had. Let's turn off our pop wind for now, and let's just watch and see what happens here. Nothing. What happened? Why is it not moving? It's not moving. Oh, because the collision geometry isn't connected here. Well, there you go. So connect your collision geometry always, and then it'll work. So let's go and boop. Now they're inside of a sphere. We've got our blade of grass, we've got our ball of grass, we've got our grass moving and undulating. Now we need to make the explosion for the grass to move away from. So what we're going to do is we're going to uncheck this grass, and we're going to add a sparse, billowy smoke to our scene. Boom. There it is. And that's not what we want, but it's getting us there. We're going to go into our billowy smoke, and then we're going to delete this torus. We don't want that. We want to just create a sphere and put it right down and put it right there. It is perfect. So now we have a sphere and we have some smoke. We're going to have to change some stuff. We're going to go in to our velocity, and we're going to take this pre-process, and we're going to go initial vector 0. We're going to go down to the, what is it? Adjust width, and we're going to say random. And now I don't want it to go up, and that's in smoke terms, buoyancy. So we got to figure out where that is. Let's go back up 1 level and then over into our smoke simulation. Let's go to our pyro solver, and under simulation, buoyancy scale. There it is. And we're going to turn that to 0. Perfect. That should do the trick, right? Well, something's still happening. Why did it go that way? Well, I know why. That's because in our shape, we've got some wind. What we're going to do is basically, I'm going to turn all of this off. All I want is some dissipation, and I'm actually going to set that dissipation. 0.02, that's what it is. Now that should get rid of that wind, and we should just have it undulating outward. Let's add some more voxels in there just to get like a little bit more resolution. So I'm going to go down in voxel size. We're going to set it to 0.05, and we're going to see what that does. That moves well. Now, if I do this, and I just use the smoke simulation as is, what's going to end up happening with our grass? I'll show you. We're going to look at it in this view. I'm going to turn off. Let's go back up to our object, and let's turn off our billowy smoke and turn on our grass. And I'm going to watch this. So what we forgot to do, it's not moving because we're not using the smoke to advect any of the points that are there. So we're going to go back into our Vellum solver, and we're going to delete our pop wind, and we're going to add an advect from volumes node into our forces. So now we should, when we drop our SOP level, if you go up, and you can go all the way up to billowy smoke and then render billowy smoke, now we should be advecting the points via that smoke that we just created. So let's go back up and look at this and watch what happens. And right. So our collision geometry brings it down into a ball, but it does it too late, and then it can't go anywhere, which, if this is what you want, cool. That's got like an interesting texture to it, but that's not what we want. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to add another keyframe at like 30-something seconds. That's 4 on our transform node of our sphere that's going into our collider object. That way it comes down, it squishes it all together, and goes back out. That way it's not bothered by anything else. So let's see what happens now. So the turbulence is happening, and it's pushing it away, and see, it's just dissipating and keeps dissipating and keeps dissipating. That's not what we want. We want it to keep together. And you're like, oh, well, maybe we could just add some more, some more points in here to make some more blades of grass. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. I tried that. It didn't work. Basically, what I found out was it's still emitting smoke from this. So it's still going to just like push it out the whole way. And obviously, we don't want that. We just want it to like explode and then kind of undulate a little bit, but it's not like pushing everything outward the whole time. So let's go back into our smoke sim, and the way that we fix it is we go into our volume sources, and we tell the activation. I go $FF, which is saying at frame. If the frame is less than 2, then you activate your smoke. So I only want it to go for frame 1, and then when it goes to frame 2, it stops giving a source. So then it stops giving smoke. So that immediately decreases our billowing. So we got to go back over. We got to add some more velocity to it. So I'm going to just throw up the amplitude to I don't know, 24, and we're going to see what happens. So now we're seeing, well, without our grass, now we're seeing our smoke in that same kind of undulation area thing. If we added some more voxel sizes to this, I'm sure we can see a lot better kind of how it undulates well. So we can do that. That'll give us some more detail in the curling for our noise. So let's go with that number. We still haven't figured out what to do when we take the ball and we squish it down to get our grass into a ball and then take it out, because that's when we want the smoke to happen. So what do I do for that? You go to your billowy smoke thing, and you go down, and underneath your pyro look, we're going to add a time shift node to this, and we're going to go in, we're going to delete this channel, and we're going to say frame minus 24. So basically that's going to say, I don't want you to start rendering until frame 24. It moves the whole thing back 24 frames. So now what we can do with our grass is we have 2 stages. The collision geometry comes down, makes that ball, and then it releases and the smoke happens at the same time. So we should get exactly what we want in this pass. Goes down, and then it blows up. So now that we've got all of our balls of grass, all of our grass balls, whatever, man, grassy balls. I don't think that I can say that on here. Well, 1 video in and I'm already canceled. Okay, so now we've got all of our grass, and we've dialed in all of the smoke stuff and all of this, whatever bendy areas, and we've got hair. So we're going to sweep it and we're going to give it some extrusion, and we're going to see what that looks like. Now, normally, and I've already changed this, but normally on our max stretch, the way that you had it earlier, it was at 0.002. Oh, I'm sorry, not our max stretch. Let's go back. So normally here, we would have had 0.004, whatever I had earlier on that copy to points back here. When I completely went away from the Vellum here, I had the sweep, and this looked pretty okay. Well, what was it? I can't even remember now. We were at 0.04 maybe, just to give it no, it's not that. It was 0.08 or 7 or something. Yeah. So given some leaf kind of characteristics. But as soon as you drop this Vellum hair, Vellum solver into it, for whatever reason, I have no clue, it absolutely disintegrates whatever scaling you had there. And I have no clue. Again, I have no clue what I'm doing. So we're going to simulate this again, and we're going to drop back. I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. So get some frames in there, and we're going to sweep it, and I'll show you it's gone. It's there, but it's gone. I don't know if you can see. The width is so small, it's not calculating. So we're going to just drive this puppy up to I don't know, 8. Maybe that's too much. Maybe 5. 56. Perfect. Now I'm just going to, nope, we're going down to 5. There. Now we've corrected that, and we get some pretty okay looking wavy and undulating bendy blades of grass, which I'm pretty stoked about, honestly. So then we're going to drop that poly extrude in to give it a little bit of thickness and have it double-sided. And that's looking pretty okay. So the next thing, if we're looking at this, the next thing we got to do is we got to put 1 light in here. We got to put a dome light to get rid of all the ambient light, and we've got to put some material. So let's add a light. Of course it crashes. That's amazing. All right, cool. We're going to build this whole thing back again. This is why you save. Okay, we can resume from where we were. Perfect. Now let's add a light to this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into, I'm using Redshift. You can use whatever you want. You can use Mantra. You can use, I don't know, what are the other ones? If you're using Octane in here, you're shooting yourself in the foot. I tried to do it for months and it just works way better with Redshift. Just learn Redshift. It's a no-brainer in Houdini and it's infuriating in Cinema 4D. I don't understand why they made the switch, but whatever. So we're going to go with one light dome and we're going to go into the light dome and add a black to the color because we don't want to shine any ambient light anywhere. And we want to add a singular light, and we'll just put it off to the side over here. I'm going to scoot this back, and I'm going to go into the light settings, and I'm going to increase the shape size by like 4. We just want it to be over there, shining halfway through. Now that we've got those, we've got our grass, we've got our lights, we've got our smoke sim and everything working. Now we need a material. So let's go into our materials and let's just add a Redshift material builder into our material node. We'll call this Grace, and we will put it down. And I don't know why, but Redshift just automatically puts down a standard material. I don't like it. I like the regular material. So that's what I'm gonna do. RS material, and it is different. You're like, wait, isn't it the same? No, it's different, man. I don't know what to tell you. Again, I know nothing. I just move buttons around. So a couple of things were why I used hair, and it just kind of was a happy accident at the end. If you look at this asset, you can see that there's variation in the blades of grass, but there's also variation on the singular blades of grass. And what I'm doing is I'm using the hair mapping to drive all of that. So we're going to go in and we're going to manipulate the hair, which then will inform the UV map of said extrusion and the ribbon and sweeping stuff. So let's put down a hair position and let's put down a hair random color. No, I'm not going to do that because I tried to do that once and it didn't work. We're going to go vertex attribute. And what that's going to do is that's going to take what we're seeing here and it's going to pipe it in to our diffuse color. See, it takes this attribute CD and throws it in. So let's go ahead, let's save and let's fire up our render view. Let's see what we're working with so far. White, perfect. That's because we need to go into our grass geo node under render tab and we need to assign the material to it, grass. Let's go back to materials and underneath our grass, let's put in our color into our diffuse. And this is the most confusing thing of all time. I have no idea why it does this, but whenever you do a vertex attribute lookup and you plug it in, it just gives you this default color. And then if you restart your render, it gives it to you the way that you want it to. And I have no idea why. Okay, so we're getting there, right? Like we're looking at that and we're looking at like this. It's looking, I don't know, sort of close, right? We obviously need to add some more hair and stuff for it, but we're going to just pay attention to the material at this point. So I'm going to do a couple things. We've got this attribute, see, look at that, vertex attribute lookup. And now I want to go into this hair position. This will add some more detail to it and it'll do it procedurally too, which is really cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a ramp node to this. If we do this, it's going to turn it completely black. That's right. So a couple things need to happen here. We need to take the mapping and we need to make it vertical. That's fine. We need to go into UV mapping. And then I think what I have to do is I have to squeeze this really far down because of the scaling. Okay, so in order for this to work, we've got to go back up and we've got to go to the grass geo node and we've got to go into sweep. And under sweep, we got to go UVs and attributes and say compute UVs. And that way we'll be able to see what's going on in our render view throughout the whole process. So there you go. You see it's kind of like getting in there a little bit. Let's go back to our materials and let's go into our grass and let's go into our ramping hair position and we can just take this all the way down to where we see a little bit of that green coming in, and then we want to give the body of our grass a more I don't know, kind of desaturated texture and flavor. We'll put it over to the side a little bit to give it some stuff. Okay, so that's giving a little bit of more what we want. So basically what this does is this hair position node is saying, I want you to output this to the V. It's following the spline that exists on the hair. You can take this ramp and remap it to be like this is the tip and this is the base. Based on the scale, and again, I know nothing, but based on the scale, you have to clamp it down like this. I don't know. Maybe there's a way that you can just scale the UVs up really like a lot, and then it makes more sense, but I have not been able to get it to work correctly like that. So if anybody's got any kind of solution for it, drop a comment and tell me that I'm an idiot and tell me what to do, whatever. Back to this. So what we also want to do is, if you look at any kind of grass, there's like a little bit of noise. So we'll just add a little noise to it. We can up the frequency. That'll just like kind of break this up, right? Now what we're going to do is we're going to copy both of these points over, and I'm going to go into this hair position. I'm going to say into this ramp. Instead of mapping it vertically, we want to map it horizontally. So this is going to change it to where it's mapping it from side to side. Let me show you. So if we dip all the way in here and we're looking at these guys, and we're going to see that it maps it from one side to the other. And that's pretty fun. That's pretty cool. Like, you can just do that procedurally. It does it for all of them. You can see it right there and there and there and there, and that's all cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a little tiny line in the middle. That way we won't have to like UV map it or whatever. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to create this like darker kind of greenish thing. It's right here, which was almost the same thing here. But then I'm going to take this one and I'm going to add another one there and flip it to the other side. And then we've got this like middle bit here that's like kind of black, and it adds some more flavor to it, and it's kind of fun, right? So we can pull this in and we can make this a little bit more defined. You know, we can pull it all the way in and make it like super defined and crisp, and maybe it like adds a line to it, but we don't really want to do that. We want to spread it out a little bit. And let's give it a brown texture, and it's not going to add much. I'm not telling you it's going to add a lot, but it's going to add something to your render, especially when we go back out and we're looking at it from afar. Now we're going to take all three of those things. We're going to add our ramp here, our ramp, we're going to add our ramp here, our ramp here, and our ramp here, which again, it's like you got to restart your thing. And we're going to take all of that and we're going to mix it together to where we get this variation. Let's go ahead and throw a mix, redshift color mix in here. We're going to put that into input 1 and put this ramp into input. Actually, let's trade those up because it looks a whole lot cleaner. You have to restart your IPR every single time you want to use this technique. So I'm going to turn up the mix amount to where it looks pretty okay. Like, I'm not seeing a ton of this. I'm seeing a little bit of variation, but not a ton. And then I'm going to also put another one over here. Yep, there it is. And I'm going to mix these two together and then pipe that into the one. And there you have it. The way to make grass explosions, all you need to do at this point is just go back in and increase this points from volume to where it has more, and then you get a little something like this. And that's pretty much it. That's all we got. YouTube, thank you so much for being here. If you like this video, go check out some other ones that I have. There's some other live streams and stuff. If you like this, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe bell, all sorts of stuff, and check out these other two videos as well. I will see you next time on the next video, if I put one out, which I might not, if I'm being honest. This might be the last one. Who knows? All right, peace.